the story of a nation is often told through the resilience of its people and the vision of its leaders. Burkina Faso, a country long associated with poverty, political instability, and the harsh realities of surviving in the Sahel, has recently found itself at the heart of an experiment that challenges not only the perception of what is possible in Africa, but also the very definition of governance in the modern world. At the center of this transformation stands Ibrahim Traoré, the young and defiant leader who has dared to imagine an alternative path for his people. His latest project, the construction of 50,000 free homes for the citizens of Burkina Faso, has stunned observers both within Africa and beyond. It is more than a social program. It is a declaration of intent, a revolutionary step aimed at rewriting the social contract between government and citizen, and perhaps one of the boldest experiments in people-centered governance in recent memory. To understand the weight of this initiative, one must first consider the realities of housing in Burkina Faso. For decades, millions of Burkinabés have lived without secure shelter, many in makeshift structures vulnerable to weather, displacement, and collapse. Rural poverty has forced families into overcrowded homes, while urban migration has created sprawling informal settlements in Ouagadougou and Bobo-Dioulasso. Land disputes, corruption in housing allocations, and a lack of financing opportunities have meant that for the majority, the dream of a dignified home remained out of reach. Generations have grown up in temporary dwellings, caught in a cycle where insecurity of shelter reinforced insecurity of livelihood. Against this backdrop, the promise of free housing is not merely a material upgrade. It is a radical shift in the lived reality of the people. It promises dignity, stability, and a stake in the nation's future. Traoré's announcement of this project did not come quietly. It was delivered in the same fiery, unapologetic tone that has characterized his speeches since assuming leadership. He framed the project not as charity, but as justice, a return of resources to the people from whom they were long extracted. In his words, the land belongs to the citizens. The wealth of the nation belongs to the citizens, and the government's duty is to ensure that this wealth is used to secure the welfare of the many, not the comfort of the few. By pledging to build 50,000 homes free of cost to the population, he positioned himself not as a politician making promises, but as a revolutionary enacting a vision. This rhetorical framing matters because it shifts the conversation from whether the government can afford to do this to whether the government dares to do what has always been possible but never attempted. Critics were quick to question the feasibility. International analysts argued that Burkina Faso, a nation struggling with debt, security challenges, and underdevelopment, cannot possibly finance such an ambitious undertaking without external aid. Some Western commentators framed the project as unsustainable populism, suggesting that it was designed more for political spectacle than long-term viability. Yet within Burkina Faso, the reaction was vastly different. Citizens celebrated the announcement as proof that their voices had been heard, that the sacrifices of enduring instability and conflict were now being met with tangible rewards. For many, the idea of owning a permanent home was unimaginable. Suddenly, the possibility of security, a roof that cannot be taken away by landlords or washed away by rain, became real. The jubilation in local communities was not simply about houses, it was about hope, about the psychological liberation that comes with being recognized as deserving of dignity. The logistics of such a project are monumental. Constructing 50,000 homes requires massive mobilization of resources, land allocation, urban planning, raw materials, skilled and unskilled labor, transportation networks, and ongoing maintenance strategies. The announcement included details that the homes would be distributed across both urban and rural areas, ensuring equity between city dwellers and villagers who have long felt marginalized. Each housing unit, according to preliminary plans, would include access to clean water systems, sanitation, and solar electricity where possible, ensuring that the homes were not just shelters, but holistic environments for healthy living. The scale of the project also carries the promise of job creation. Tens of thousands of young Burkinabe, many unemployed or underemployed, could find work in construction, engineering, carpentry, and associated industries, giving the project a dual function of providing housing while stimulating the economy. Beyond the bricks and mortar lies the deeper political significance. Traore's leadership has consistently challenged the dominance of Western institutions in African governance. By embarking on a project of such magnitude without waiting for the blessing of the IMF, the World Bank, or donor countries, he signaled a rejection of dependency and an embrace of sovereignty. The project will be financed, he insisted, through domestic resource mobilization, reallocation of state expenditures, and strategic partnerships with nations willing to work on equal terms. This message struck a chord with many Africans across the continent, who see in Traore's policies a mirror of their own frustrations with governments too beholden to external dictates. In the global conversation, the project has become symbolic not only of Burkina Faso's struggle, but of Africa's broader desire for independence in policymaking. International reactions have been telling. Some governments have expressed quiet admiration, recognizing that if successful, the project could inspire similar initiatives across Africa and beyond. Others, however, have viewed it with suspicion, fearing that the demonstration of such people-centered governance could undermine their own influence. Commentaries in Western financial media warned that such moves might destabilize investor confidence as governments prioritize social welfare over debt repayment or liberalized markets. Yet, the louder the criticism abroad, the greater the support at home. Traore has managed to turn external skepticism into fuel for nationalist pride, framing every doubt expressed by foreign institutions as evidence of how little outsiders understand the will of the Burkinabe people. The human stories emerging from the early stages of the project are perhaps the most powerful testament to its impact. Families who were once living in mud huts, vulnerable to collapse in the rainy season, now speak of waiting eagerly for their new homes. Mothers dream of raising their children without the constant fear of displacement. Young couples who previously saw no pathway to independence now envision building lives together under roofs they can truly call their own. For elderly citizens, the homes represent not just shelter, but recognition, a signal that their nation has not abandoned them in their final years. These voices, amplified through local media and word of mouth, have created a groundswell of support that even critics struggle to dismiss. Economically, the ripple effects are significant. By using primarily local materials and labor, the project has the potential to stimulate domestic industries from cement production to solar panel installation. Small and medium enterprises stand to benefit from contracts, while the circulation of wages earned by workers will boost local markets. The multiplier effect could reposition housing not just as a social good, but as a catalyst for broader economic transformation. In this sense, the project is not merely a housing scheme. It is an economic development strategy disguised as social welfare. This dual impact echoes historical examples where large-scale public works projects not only transformed infrastructure, but also reshaped national economies. The difference here is that the end beneficiaries are not abstract markets or distant investors, but the people themselves. There are, of course, challenges that cannot be ignored. Corruption and mismanagement have historically plagued large state-led projects across Africa, raising legitimate concerns about whether the homes will reach those most in need. Ensuring transparency in allocation, preventing elite capture, and avoiding inflated contracts will be crucial. Traore has promised strict oversight mechanisms, including community monitoring committees, public reporting of expenditures, and punitive measures for officials who engage in malpractice. Whether these measures will succeed remains to be seen, but the acknowledgement of these risks suggests a seriousness that past governments often lacked. Beyond Burkina Faso, the symbolic resonance of the project may be its most enduring legacy. In a continent where millions remain unhoused or poorly housed, the notion that a government can and should provide dignified shelter to its citizens for free challenges decades of neoliberal orthodoxy. It raises uncomfortable questions. If a resource-constrained nation like Burkina Faso can attempt this, why not wealthier African states? Why should African leaders continue to preach austerity while their citizens live in misery? The project has therefore become more than a domestic initiative. It has become a litmus test for the courage and imagination of African leadership in the 21st century. As the first foundations are laid and the construction sites come alive with activity, the world watches. For some, this is a noble experiment doomed to collapse under the weight of economic realities. For others, it is the beginning of a new model of governance rooted in dignity, sovereignty, and boldness. For the people of Burkina Faso, it is a promise that for once, leadership means service, not exploitation. And for Ibrahim Traoré, it is a gamble that by daring to dream beyond the constraints imposed by history and external powers, he can not only transform his nation, but inspire a continent. The story of 50,000 free homes is, at its heart, the story of what leadership can look like when it is driven by conviction rather than convenience, by vision rather than fear. Whether it succeeds or fails, it will be remembered as one of the most audacious attempts to redefine the role of the state in Africa's modern history. And in the eyes of many, that attempt alone makes it worth celebrating.